Shut up and sit down.
Oh, this league is so much better with Lance Romance back in action.
Riding along on my push bike, honey, when I noticed you. Riding downtown in a hurry, honey, down South Avenue.
Disc brakes, carbon, alloy or steel bikes, aero bikes, super lightweight climbers bikes, TT bikes, endurance and Gran Fondo bikes, gravel bikes, recumbent bikes, track bikes, one-by drivetrains, wired tyres, tubeless tyres, deep section wheels, disc wheels, tri-spoke wheels, elastomer rear suspension, and absolutely anything electronic whatsoever.
There's no excuse for not acknowledging fellow riders when out on a ride.
And as speed as I tried, catching up with you, but pedaling harder too.
You are listening to the Dialed Podcast with Matt Legrand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von During. Please listen at your own risk as we will not be responsible for injury, loss, or damage as a result of your participation. Capiche?
Sing this song. Round, round, wheels going round and round. Down, up, pedals, down, up, down. Where the
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I am Jake Von During, and today I am here with Lance Hepler.
Stinky golden boy, Lance Romance in the house.
That's a new one. Evan, wife. Yeah.
That's an old one from my sister. Maybe I shouldn't have shared that either.
Yeah. And we got Evan Price.
How is it going, folks?
And not to skip anybody else, we got Matt Legrand.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? How are you guys doing?
And finally, we have a special guest with us today. We've got Chuck Kenlan from OBRA, the Executive Director for Oregon Bicycle Racing Association. Chuck, welcome to the studio.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, let's get this episode started with our back pedal. And because he's not paying attention right now because he's staring at his phone, I'm going to pick on Evan.
Yes. Oh, don't worry. I'm prepared for my back pedal. I am not going to waste any time on myself for this back pedal. This last weekend was the Kona Ironman World Championship. I know a lot of you triathlon people out there probably watched a good portion of that 8-hour race, which is really crazy to think about people sitting down and watching an 8-hour race.
event. How much did you watch?
So I was in Leavenworth for the weekend for Oktoberfest, which is fun.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been here, Leavenworth is this Bavarian town in the middle of Washington, which is just...
I really want to bring the family up there.
Oh, it's worth it. So fun. So I was watching it on and off all day as much as I could on the Facebook Live feed, which was really useful. Yeah. That was really cool this year that they did it on Facebook
I gotta
Live.
say, your guys' excitement for it made me want to watch it.
How much of that did you watch, Lance?
I watched several hours.
Yes.
I did put 50-mile ride in there in the
Yes.
beginning, but I did watch more than I thought I would.
Guilty as well.
Yeah.
It is. Me and Matt were getting texts from Jake and Lance, which I was cracking up inside, knowing how they must have been just hating that they were loving it at that time. Because
Jake was like, "Wait a minute, feed stopped. Where do I go next? What's next?" I got halfway through the bike, or part of the way into the bike.
I think the big story from the race is how fast it was. Now, people need to understand that day, the conditions on that day were perfect for speed. Like, the water was apparently very calm. The bike had a tailwind on the way back, and it was not too hot. So,
which I think the heat is kind of like what really made the big difference.
Exactly. And like the direction of the wind on the bike was big.
Have you guys been to the Big Island before?
I have not. Lance has, though.
So I've been 8 or 9 times or something like that. And every time I go and I take my bike with me, I go for a ride out on the Queen K because that's what you do if you're a former triathlete.
Oh, yeah.
And after doing that a few times, I never wanted to do that race again.
So I've heard people say that it's the most underestimated, how difficult that course is, the most underestimated.
Super
part of the
hot,
race.
super humid, and there's nowhere to hide really on the bike. And if it's windy, it's brutal. So it wasn't windy.
Yeah,
for the race.
Yeah. And when the wind picked up, it was when they were coming back in, so it was a tailwind.
Yeah.
So we'll just go to my predictions could not have been more impossibly wrong. I mean, it was. We're talking for everybody who listened to the last one. Matt has his victory coffee right now, and he well deserved it.
Oh, you blew it, Evan.
I said it was going to be a day for the
blew it.
cyclists. So I said it would be a day for the cyclists, assuming that the conditions would be hard. if you look at the top 10, it's all the fast runners.
But you were
outside of one guy,
yeah,
Cameron
You
Wharf.
talked about Starkey going up front, which he did.
Yes, he did.
You did look into your crystal ball and predict how the race was going to go. You just didn't get to the finish.
I just didn't
as much
consider there's a marathon at the end of it.
Yep.
So yeah, Starkey went out there, and for anybody who doesn't know the Starkowitz story, it is definitely worth a short summary of hearing. This guy has been through a lot in the last 2 years, 3 years now. His child has been through a lot of health issues. He got hit by a truck and dragged underneath the truck.
That's a gross story.
Starkey was hit and dragged underneath the truck. I really do believe this after having met the guy, know him personally, that any other human being would have died in that situation.
He was saying like
he's the toughest human being alive.
He was saying he has like PTSD. Like he like wakes up like remembering being dragged by the truck. Like
he was dragged for a significant period of time under this truck going 45 miles an hour.
That's why I recommend just getting knocked out cold and not remembering anything.
That's bad when Jake would say, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't have that crash," because Jake's crash, obviously being as terrible as it was, this crash was horrific. So for him to even come back and be in this race is incredible. And hammering at the front of the ride, pushing Cameron Wharf, and then to see a cyclist, for all the cyclists at the table.
Yep.
The pro cyclist Cameron Wharf, who I know Jake was loving to see this, hanging on the marathon and running sub 3:10 was really cool to see.
Yeah.
Because that is, I mean, he went out there and hammered that bike course from start to finish.
Inspirational, yep.
What happened to Keenley and Sanders?
Keenley flatted at one point,
yes.
And then basically he was back in about 25th, and then I think he kind of, I don't know how his run went, but I think he kind of, that was it.
He just faded.
Well, I don't think he. I like to think that he tried. He was one of my picks that didn't turn out. So I just don't think he moved up that much throughout the race. He really needs to have a big bike to have a chance.
Lionel Sanders.
We're gonna see. I have not.
We don't know.
Heard
he just
what
didn't.
happened
He just
to him
didn't
yet.
have it.
He just did not have it all day.
Kind of same. I mean, came out of the water in about what I would expect. Kind
he
of
was
back
even a little
there.
bit slow. I mean, he came out of the water not
30
in a good
something.
spot. Yeah.
And then that would like never moved up all the way on the bike. Like I would have expected him to go all the way from that place all the way to kind of the top 3. Never happened. So I would, and I'm kind of curious. Like I don't know what happened, so I kind of keep going and looking up his social media stuff.
We're gonna find out here soon, but I bet he's not gonna post something for a couple days.
I know. I think it's all radio silent. So I think he's kind of like, I don't know what happened. Not a good day. Whatever.
Yeah. But crazy that the times were so fast and two guys under 8 hours.
So the podium all beat the previous world record. All 3 guys.
Yep.
And
That's
also,
amazing.
3rd place, David McNamee. If you guys are looking for a really funny interview, look at his post-race interview. This guy's from Scotland and is like super blue-collar guy. Awesome interview. He is hilarious. The guy, like his discussion of the race was the funniest thing I've ever heard. He was talking about when he passed Javier Gomez, who's the former Olympic, he's been a multiple-time world champion, been on the podium in the Olympics multiple times. And he was talking about when he passed Javier Gomez, and he was saying he wanted to stop and get a picture with somebody and then like kind of tease Javier just because he has never passed him in a race in his life and was so excited to be passing him. So very, very interesting, I guess, events. It was definitely a runner's race at the end of the day.
Gotcha. All right, Matt, backpedal for us.
Well, I was super into the World Championships as well. Then I mentioned this in the last podcast. I've been a little bit sick, a little bit under the weather, and the training this week was just not good. The one highlight was my wife and I got a babysitter yesterday, and she, I think she looks forward to this half marathon that she does each year. It's called the Girlfriends,
She killed it.
Yeah, she did really well. And, she's been training, but I don't think she's been training that great, and the same thing happened last year where it's like, I get out there and I'm running with her and she just runs really well for no reason. She ended up getting 3rd place overall.
What?
Yep. And
she killed it. Yeah.
And I was running and I was kind of like looking at my watch. I'm clipping off like 7 flat or something like that. And I was like, yep, she's still hanging on. She's doing well. And she came back pretty well, finished well. Good. We've just had beautiful weather here. So it's been excellent. So that's kind of the highlight of my back pedal. Was being able to run with her a little bit. And basically that's our like date night, we go out for a run and get to do some stuff without the kids. So it was good times.
Nice.
Good times for sure. Lance, backpedal for us, man.
Yeah, the weather was so good this week. I rode every day. So
big
You
surprise.
still got like 5 days of good weather.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like in the 60s.
It was nice.
Did you get decent mileage in, or are you talking
I was like 250 miles or something for the week, which is a lot. Yeah,
Chop change.
right. But the funnest one was my wife went with me on Thursday, and we did 50 miles. My wife rode 50 miles with me.
Is that her longest ride?
In the last decade, yeah. So she was all stoked. It was fun to be out there and have some fun.
Had a girl, Brandy.
Yeah. Brandy kind of.
What route did you guys go with?
We just went downtown Portland and across the Selwood Bridge and just kind of easy cruising, and she did great. So it was a lot of fun. So that was cool to do. And then, of course, I raced once.
Only once?
Only once. There
Only
was
once
only
in the
one
last 7
race.
days.
That's right. There was only one race, so I've only got one race report.
I missed my chance to ride with Lance. Then. There's no way I'm ever going to get another chance now.
But I went to Heron Lakes. It's the Cyclocross Crusade. It's their third race in their series. And I had been busy all morning, so I got there pretty late in the afternoon. So I just decided to do the last race of the day in the Masters 1-2 field. And I just got smoked. I got smoked. It was, I decided, I had no expectations on myself because I knew I was not going to do well in this field, but it was kind of a flat and fast course, so I was feeling a little optimistic because that kind of suits me. But halfway through, I just got dropped by the top 20 people.
That course looked awesome. The pictures I saw looked
so much
really
fun.
good.
Yeah.
So are you going to take maybe, I don't know, like an off season at some point here?
Well,
like a little one?
Yes, I'll take an off 3
You think
days or
so?
something like that. No, I'm sure I'll
From
do
racing at
something.
least. I mean,
Well, once the Crusade series is over, yes, I
Okay.
will. So, yeah, that was the thing is it was flat. It was fast. I was kind of in the middle of the pack and trying really hard to catch a guy and totally blew a corner and crashed hard. I think I'm missing some skin.
we matching. Are we matching right now?
Yeah,
over here?
mine's way bigger, though.
Yours is tougher
deeper.
looking than
I'm
mine.
They're talking about their wounds, not what you think they're talking about. So maybe we'll get a photo of that and post it to the Facebook
of the
page.
wounds.
Oh, my bad.
What are we talking about again?
PG-13.
Wounds? Oh,
Let's
okay,
keep
got it.
Yeah. So I crashed, and that kind of took the wind out of my sails, and then I was going pretty hard to catch back up, and then I totally blew my tire off my front wheel on a sharp corner. So
Nice.
I ended up running it in. So I didn't finish very well. I was like 40th out of 50 people. I beat 10 guys.
Nice.
Hey, but
So-
you're in that 1-2 field. I mean, that's
It was
like
a fast field.
I'm going to invite you again to come run with me.
yeah.
No.
Can I tell you something, Lance? By the way, so my dad just did his first 2 cyclocross races of his life this last weekend. Been a road cyclist his whole life. He said the reason that he did this was because of these two, Jake and Lance, right here.
Oh, really?
Convinced him to jump into cyclocross racing.
Yeah.
He said it was hard, but I've never heard my dad talk with that much enthusiasm about a race in my entire life. So he says he's got some work to do, but Lance, he may be getting in contact with you, asking like how he gets fast in cyclocross. So
They're just so much fun. There's just this party atmosphere. There's all these people there. There's ton. There was 1,000
Ohio's
people
got a
racing.
good cyclocross following.
Yeah.
He's loving it. Yeah.
Matter of fact, it was fun because I'm on the course. I'm just having a blast at the last couple laps because I was out of it, and people were yelling at me, "Hey, Golden Boy, go for it, buddy!" So people have been listening
Where was
to the
White
podcast.
who's it? White Pony? Who's the other guy?
It was White Tiger or White Stallion.
White
or something
Stallion.
Like
I think
that.
it was White Stallion, if I remember right.
But people were.
So do you mostly hear Lance Romance? when
I hear
people are-
Lance a lot, and I hear Lance Romance a lot.
And then you're starting to hear Golden Boy.
Now I'm starting to hear Golden
I like
Boy.
Golden Boy. Golden Boy, Lance Romance.
So
flows.
many nicknames, so little time.
But it was fairly dusty out on the course, and you can tell that my voice took a bit of a hit. I'm talking about an octave lower for Lance Romance.
That's not just you trying to talk about
Right.
lower.
Gonna sing some Smelly Cat for us?
Maybe I should. It was funny. My friend Ryan sent me a text this morning after the race, and I told him that I had popped my tire off the wheel, and he said, "You can take the tube out of the tire, but you can't take Lance out of the corners." So, yeah.
Yeah, good job, buddy.
Thanks.
Chuck, you want to backpedal for us, man?
I'll take what you got.
This is the actually important person on the podcast today. So.
Yes. How was your week, man?
It was good. It was
Yeah?
good. I have a little second job. I guide fly fishing trips, so I'm a little tired from a few days on the river, but glad to be back at it here.
In Central Oregon, in the Bend,
on the
Deschutes
Deschutes River.
Nice.
Lower Deschutes.
Lovely.
That's tough to beat. You guys have been having really good weather down there, haven't
Oh,
you?
it's beautiful. But it was 18 degrees when I left the house this morning.
Oh, yeah.
To drive over to
To Portland.
So yeah, it's going to be 70. So that's the big swing we get in Bend is teens to 70.
Great. So when you take people out on guided fly fishing tours, are you fishing yourself, or are you just basically telling them what to do?
Yeah, I take them to the right spot, point them in the direction.
Point and shoot, huh?
Untie their knots, tie their flies on.
Gotcha.
Take care of them.
Yeah. Might have to sign me up for one of your little expeditions one of these days. So
are you a
Fishing
good,
sounds
are
a
you a
whole
good
lot
tipper?
more fun.
With a guide,
a good tipper.
Yeah, are you a good tipper?
Sure,
I'll take it.
Yeah.
If you're a good tipper, you're down.
Yeah.
This is like a 20% thing, right? Is that how this works?
Yeah, at least.
At least.
Awesome. All right, let's get this thing started. I would backpedal, but I don't really have much to say. It's just been more of the same, guys. It's just
More rehab.
Go listen to like the last 4 weeks, and you can listen to my backpedal. It's been about the same. So.
I did see Jake out at the cyclocross race yesterday, so he came out with a couple of his kids.
That is true. Came out with my kids and my camera, and it was funny. I got back and uploaded the pictures, and there was 445 pictures on my camera, and I dwindled that down to about 125, I think, and posted those up on our team site. So that was kind of fun.
Are you still swifting?
Yes.
Another week through?
Another week. Yeah.
Feeling solid?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right. I mean, it's I don't know. It's just not the most comfortable thing in the world, but my fitness is coming around a little bit, so that's good.
That's good.
So, anyhow, let us get this thing started, and we're gonna basically just kind of go through a little interview session with Chuck. And I wanted to really give everybody the chance to get to know him a little bit better, and let everybody know what it is that he's doing with OBRA, and that's Oregon Bicycle Racing Association, as the executive director. And we're gonna ask him some questions and just kind of run around the table and let Chuck answer the questions that we have. All right, sound good, Lance?
Yep.
Why don't you start us off, bud?
How did you get into OBRA? How did you get to that spot where you're at?
In 2004, the organization, I was the executive director for the Mount Bachelor Sports Education Foundation. We coach about 600 athletes at Mount Bachelor, ran that. We took over the Cascade Cycling Classic, longest running professional stage race in North America.
Yeah.
So I started learning about the production of bike races then pretty well, and got to know OBRA. What I didn't know that OBRA existed really, other than my wife racing, because there was a great comparison between the officials in the yellow shirts and the officials in the blue shirts that were handling the pro races during that. And so kind of got attracted to the OBRA side of things, a lot cooler.
So you've been the executive director for how long then?
For OBRA?
Yeah.
Oh, since 1st of April.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's
pretty,
this year, yeah.
pretty new to
It's a
this.
new thing.
But yeah, so we ran the Cascade Cycling Classic. I decided I'm going to start racing my own bike. Joined a team, had a lot of fun, became an OBRA official to help out the local race promoters so they didn't have to pay travel expenses, and just got involved in the organization that way. The last 4 years, I promoted bike races in Bend, a couple different weekly series, and some bigger weekend events.
Gotcha.
TFG Racing, it stands for Two Fat Guys. Some of you guys might know Matthew LaSala. He's been an OBRA racer forever, so Matthew and I were the promoters for that.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Evan, you got any questions for him?
Yeah. So how did you yourself get into cycling? And then my second question to that is, how have you seen like Central Oregon change in like the cycling community and just itself? I know we were talking about that a little bit before the podcast too.
Well, I rode before I met my wife, but when I met her, she was a really top level road bike racer through the 80s, early 90s, top level mountain bike racer. So after we met, I started riding an awful lot more because that was her thing, and so just became a recreational rider who I ended up getting fairly strong as a recreational rider, and then decided to try to pin a number on and see how that went. But cycling in Central Oregon is the biggest change I see. It's growing immensely. I think cycling in itself is healthy. There's a lot a lot of people coming into the sport of cycling, not necessarily the competitive side of cycling. But the other thing, I moved to Bend when it was 16,000 people. It's 100,000 now. Yeah. So it's a little more dangerous out on the roads. But Bend is a huge destination mountain bike town. And like most of my friends, they're kind of shifting their training and their riding to gravel. And that's been a big change. Wife just got off a 4-day tour in the Ochiko Mountains on gravel roads. So great little bike shop in Prineville, The Good Bike, and they do a great job out there, put on a lot of events.
Very cool.
Awesome. I have a question for you. What about OBRA right now has you most excited? I mean, what is one thing that you can think of that you really just get all pumped up about?
Well, once I started really understanding the demographics of the membership and looking at the kind of the bell curve of the age, the bell curve of the income, is we provide a pretty good opportunity for companies to get their name out there. It's pretty powerful. 4,000 members, email lists that are getting close to 20,000. A lot of followers on social media, and so that excites me. Is the idea of OBRA selling some presenting sponsors to help cover some of the costs of OBRA. And the big thing there is really to help subsidize race promoters. That's the lifeblood of OBRA is these guys that work really hard for very little to put on bike races and to help subsidize those to make it more worth their time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a follow up to that real quick, Matt, before you go. How does now that you're at the head of OBRA, how do you attract sponsors in like the changing kind of media environment we have, in the last 10 years, 5 years especially? But
I think I don't know yet because we have I haven't got anybody to bite yet, but I'm in talks with 2 large national companies right now. And they understand the demographics that we have and who they're going to be out in front of. I think there's an awful lot of value there to them. So again, it's for us, it's you got a state of Oregon which is cycling crazy, and so they're going to be title sponsors at the different championship events. They're going to get their exposure there. They're going to get their exposure throughout the year. All these events are going to have them as sponsors, so you can sell that. You can sell the exposure across the state in all disciplines: track, cyclocross, road, mountain.
Mm-hmm. And cycling has big followings in all the big cities in Oregon, which is, Oregon only has how many big cities? Two, 3.
Depends on what qualifies.
I'm new here.
City.
I don't think I'm allowed to say that.
I didn't realize this. Medford's right up there at 100,000 too.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of really passionate cyclists down in Southern Oregon. That Rogue River Valley. There's some really strong riders. I was looking at one of the guys. I think he was second in your race, Lance, yesterday. Ben Brainerd. Yeah, he's from down in that zone.
He's from the Roseburg area.
Yeah. He's a powerhouse.
Yeah, he smoked me.
He smoked a lot.
Well, there's some beautiful riding in that Southern Oregon,
Northern
California area.
Yeah, I'm working with the Visitors Bureau down there. They want to bring a big bike race to the area. So they gave me a tour here last spring. I had a really nice conversation with the community there about what it would take to bring a big event there, and they're fired up. They're going to start small in 2019, bringing some other smaller bike races, but in 2020 they want to have a large stage race, and their proximity to Northern California is really good. That's some Northern California riders came to that meeting we had, and they want to have something like that there too. So it's pretty exciting to see something.
It would be great to get another big stage race in the area. That's for sure.
Yeah, we only have one.
Because
the Baker City.
Baker City. Yeah. It seems like we've been losing race promoters.
Yeah.
We've lost a few people that have been race promoting, or races have gone away, and with that type of exposure that you have with OBRA, how do we get new race promoters or get our recent race, the current ones to add other races?
Well, I think one thing OBRA has done historically is kind of gone the free market route on the calendar. I saw a number of races this year cannibalize from each other because they were on the same date on the calendar. And so as a promoter, it's not financial. I mean, I'm a promoter myself, so financially you don't want to lose money, but it's just not fun to put on a bike race for small fields.
Yeah.
And if you're putting on a race the same day that somebody else is putting on a race that's similar, you're both robbing from each other. And so that's one thing going forward is we're going to pay much closer attention to the calendar and work with promoters to give, especially the long-time promoters, the championship events, give them some exclusivity on the calendar.
Do you guys meet with the promoters and kind of like get the round table going a little bit? Because, you know, I know a running organization that I worked with a long time ago did that, you know, at the beginning of each year, we sit down with a big group round table a little bit and kind of make sure that they have the opportunity to either, you know, overlap or not overlap, right? Which is what everyone wants to do, is not overlap.
Right. Here about 3 weeks ago, I contacted all the promoters, asked them to submit their dates for next year to get a working calendar. We have the promoters meeting on November 10th, where we spend 3 hours in a room with the promoters. You know, the biggest chunk of time on that agenda is the calendar,
right?
And you know, with a few other topics in there, but really getting the calendar and creating a smart calendar is
that
really
should be
important.
I mean, that should be pretty exciting to hear for Oregon Washington cyclists, because I mean, I just knowing that sort of organization's going on is a good sign. I know I told Chuck I'm from the Midwest originally, and I know we had that problem out in the Midwest where you've got fun races on the same weekend. It's like, yeah, that would have been nice if that would have been addressed prior to those ending up on the same day.
Yeah, it really became clear on the OBRA Road Race Championships. I was over there. I ended up officiating because they needed an extra official for one of the fields, but I was over there to hang medals and give out jerseys. And the same date, there was a new event over in Bend that was a really cool event and a really cool format, but they were on the same day. That was the best of both, where it was a kind of a road bike, mountain bike duathlon, and everybody that did it loved it. And I know I have a lot of friends in Bend that would have driven over to the Silverton and done the state road race, and I know a lot of folks that did the OBRA Road Race Championships that would have loved to go over to Bend and race the best of both. So that was kind of a glaring. Then, you know, I put on the OBRA Crit Championships the last 2 years, and 2 years ago it was right on top of another crit that was here in Portland, I think, and so that, you know, a lot of folks didn't want to drive over to the Eastern Oregon so that's a big goal, is to have a smart calendar, and smart doesn't necessarily mean a lot more races. In fact, you know, Oregon has a lot of races. There are a lot of races.
Yeah.
And so maybe contraction is a good idea to make the races that are there stronger and better and more fun for everybody. So we'll look at that with the promoters. And there's some really, really talented folks in the state that have been doing this for a long time. I'm not an expert at all, so to listen to them and hear their ideas on that is really important too.
Do the promoters work well together? Is it a good group that can kind of come together and would be okay with contracting and working together in that sense?
It appears to be. You know, I don't know all of the promoters, but the ones that do the bigger races, you know, Zone 5, the two Davids, what they've been able to do to keep road racing alive in Oregon has been pretty amazing. I know them well, and Brian out at Baker City, and I just, you know, I think we can all do a better job on creating a calendar that everybody has success.
Gotcha. What would you say your personal biggest challenge is right now with respect to the executive director position?
Well, I think we've kind of crossed that hurdle. If those of you who probably don't know this, Jake is the president of the OBRA board right now. So the one thing, and I think we're through that hurdle just about, is the governance issue and some of the structure of the organization. The bylaws hadn't been revised or looked at since 1990. So went through a major bylaws revision, kind of added some structure to the board of directors where we now have officers. And so the board also now has the opportunity with the new bylaws to go out and recruit board members on top of the 6 that are elected by the delegates within OBRA. So we can up to 5 new board members. And so we can go to somebody with really strong sports marketing background, recruit them to the board, bring a CPA on to help with the finances, that type of thing. So the board can target people and invite them to be on the board and grow that.
Yeah. In that same breath, I just want to give you kudos, Chuck. You have brought so much stability to the organization that a lot of people don't see, and it's a thankless job to date. From when you started to now, people don't understand how much work and effort you've put forth to really create stability and some structure and some foundation for the Oregon Bicycle Racing Association. And it's going to be so much fun to watch it flourish over the next year to 2 years with all of the fun things that are kind of in the pipeline that we're talking about. So thank you. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. You know, when I got hired, one of my really good friends is Brad Ross. And most of you know Brad, the founder of the Cross Crusade.
Yeah.
And Brad said, Chuck, I'm going to be your Hope Hicks here for the year. But he said, don't go in there and try to, change the world. He said, get the house in order first. And that was a really good piece of advice. And I'm doing that from a financial standpoint. I've almost completely reorganized the chart of accounts. My big thing is I want the board and our membership to see where we are accurately. And so the board, the 6 board people that we have right now have fiduciary responsibility for the organization. It's important that they know exactly what's going on. So I'm trying to get that squared away.
Good. Any other questions from you guys?
With the upcoming topics, well, plenty, but yeah.
Sure.
Good for now.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I would say 2 questions. One, like, what would you say to people that aren't OBRA members currently? They're listening to the podcast. Like, how would you, suggest they get involved?
If they're avid cyclists,
Yep.
find a club, and that's something that Jake's working on here. Is giving, being able to reach out, have clubs reach out and attract cyclists to them, because that's what got me bike racing, was joining a club and having the Cat 1s on my team and the women and the juniors learning from the Cat 1s, and that got me excited about racing. So I think that's, find a club, find a group of people to ride with, and that everybody's experienced it. That first time you pin a number on makes you pretty nervous. After you've done it once, it gets better, and it's a ton of fun. So you got to take that first leap of faith. It's been fun putting on our local crit series, because we've had a bunch of new bike racers show up, and they're nervous, and they pin a number on, and maybe they get dropped, and the first race, but by the second race they might get dropped, but able to jump back in when they get lapped, and their confidence goes up, and all of a sudden by the end of a 6-race series, they're staying with a group and having fun. So it's just cross that first hurdle. Yeah. Find a race that fits you. Cyclocross is a great first race.
Amen to that. And going back to that team comment, or the team club comment, there's nothing more enjoyable than finding that sweet spot of being around a bunch of like-minded people who share a passion for what it is that you love, and really can help ease you into the process of learning how to be a proficient bike racer. It's a lot of fun. So I think for me personally with OBRA, and I've said this a bunch of times, really hitting home that whole team concept and helping teams attract people and come up with a good way for them to grow their particular club. That's going to be a big thing for us. I really think that's going to pay huge dividends for us down the road with what we're going to invest in that.
Yeah, I agree. The exciting thing is, though, Art, the number of OBRA registered teams is up, which is really cool. Membership's flat, but the number of organized teams that have paid for an OBRA team membership is up. So that's a good sign.
So what would you like to see current members do to kind of help OBRA take it to the next level?
Yeah, that's, we all get in our own little bubble.
Absolutely.
And, it's pretty easy to stay there. When I hear the biggest decline really has been in road bike racing. And when I hear them lament the fact that their fields are smaller, I feel that they can all do something to bring new racers in and invite friends and the teams that they're on, make their teams more open to new riders. The dialed cycling team's great because they get the huge amount of juniors that are going to come up. So some of the teams opening themselves up to having juniors and all genders. But yeah, I think they can do a lot to so they can have more fun, because it's not as much fun racing in the smaller fields.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I hope everybody learned a little bit about Chuck here. On that note, let's jump into the next round of topics here. Chuck, what in the heck is NABRA?
You know, it was something that was formed, I think, in 2013. My predecessor, Kenji Sugahara, and a few other OBRA folks formed this organization called the North American Bicycle Racing Association. And it was designed to give out-of-state race promoters a platform to ensure a bike race. So, I mean, everybody here has probably heard of the Crusher and the Tusher. NABRA permits that race. We've done races in Texas, Alaska, Oklahoma, Tennessee, so all over the country, Hawaii, Southern California. Actually, the Hawaii one was funny because the guy wanted to have an e-bike field in his race, and thank God,
Here we go.
Thank God, I called the insurance company, and thank God they said no, it's a motorized sport. Because
thank you. All 4 e-bikes, not in racing.
Yeah,
isn't that called just like motocross?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's motocross. But you know what,
sport.
though? I think, it's not going to be the first time I get asked that question. It's going to come up. It's a huge growing segment of the cycling industry.
It is, and the people who do it love it. They really stand by it.
At Cross Vegas a couple years ago, they had a joke race where everybody rode e-bikes, but it was a joke,
Well, at Sea Otter they did one, and Decker rode a non-e-bike, and I think he still finished third.
Right,
So
go figure. Carl Decker.
Yeah. So he jumped in the e-bike race, and I think he still finished third place. But so what I hear from these promoters, I talk with them on the phone, and it's so nice. And one of the reasons OBRA was formed was another product aside from USA Cycling and permitting their races through USAC. The promoters around the country have found in their vicinities it's been really a challenge to work with our national governing body. I mean, it's a great national governing body, and their CEO is a really talented individual, but it's regional, and then the cost of doing a race through USAC, it's probably about double what it is for OBRA, and we charge these NABRA promoters less than what we charge OBRA because there's no equipment fee and they don't have to have an OBRA membership. So it gives them the opportunity to get insurance for their event that equals the same insurance that USA Cycling provides for much lower cost.
I don't think we've ever jumped into on this show we'll call it a rift between OBRA and USA Cycling. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
There may have been in the early days. There may have been a rift, and the success of OBRA, and it's interesting. You talked to Candy and Mike Murray about it because they were involved when the split happened. There was an OBRA before that was part of USA Cycling, and then when the split, they decided to get their own insurance. One of the big successes there was, because it's been tried in other states and failed, in Oregon, all the promoters went with OBRA. The other states, in Colorado, for example, half the races stayed with USAC and half the races went to OBRA. And so people, didn't know what license. They had to buy 2 different licenses if they wanted to race in the state of Colorado, and USA Cycling won out down there. I don't know about a rift. One really good thing that's come to pass, Derek Bouchard Hall, who's now the CEO of USA Cycling, he and my predecessor, Kenji, worked out reciprocity agreement. So if you earn points in an OBRA race, they can count towards your USAC upgrade points and vice versa.
That's big, yeah.
And so I think that's really huge for our racers. And people coming into OBRA, moving into Oregon and racing OBRA races, that their points and their categories from USA Cycling cross over to OBRA. And the other really cool thing that's happened was the first weekend of the Cyclocross Crusade at Alpenrose, where they were able to work out a deal with USA Cycling to have the first day sanctioned by them, and so it allowed racers to get points, call up points for national championships. Yeah. So that was a nice, and the next big barrier I'm going to work on is for the Cascade Cycling Classic. Is we used to be able to dual sanction that. The amateur races were sanctioned through OBRA, and the professional races were through USA Cycling. The previous CEO of USA Cycling really was pretty down on OBRA, and he did a few other things to kind of stick it to us a bit here. But he said no more dual sanction. If you're going to have amateur races on the same courses, they all have to be sanctioned by USA Cycling. And all of a sudden, the organization I worked for, we raised money through that event for us. All of a sudden, the amount of money we were able to raise went down significantly. The work went up. The costs went through the roof to have all the amateur races sanctioned there. So OBRA, if USA Cycling had a product that Oregon promoters wanted and Oregon racers wanted, there may be a discussion of maybe coming back together, but I don't see that happening anytime in the future just because they don't have the product that our racers, our members, and our promoters want here.
Gotcha. So going back to NABRA, what's the end game there? I mean, are we looking to push that forward? Do you want to build that agenda? And
yeah, and I think our OBRA's marketing director Joel Fletcher and I have talked quite a bit about that, of targeting some of the bigger gravel type events around the country, because it's a perfect way to do those. Not you don't necessarily have to have officials. You're not having caravans on their own. The exposure for NABRA isn't as high, and the participation levels are really high. So it's a good revenue stream for OBRA to do that. I'm going to be able to merge our liability policies, so the costs will go down for NABRA next year, and it's a nice revenue source for the organization to do these out-of-state races, and the bigger ones, bring a lot more in.
Yeah, and that's a huge segment to be getting involved with right now, with a ton of upside, just given the popularity. So I mean, that's a good move.
Yeah, I was signed up to go to Interbike this year, and the main thing was to talk to promoters from out of state. And when I looked at the list, there was, I think, one race promoter from out of state. So I didn't want to go to Reno.
Yeah, I think so. Having gone to Interbike, I think Interbike is starting to decline as the ones in California and Chicago are starting to grow a little bit more. So the one in California may be a little bit more what you would want to target, I would think, as if that's the group you're looking for there.
Right. But yeah, it's really fun. It's fun when somebody picks up the phone and calls me who hears about NABRA from another promoter, and I tell them what we have to offer and how it all of a sudden this huge sense of relief comes off their shoulders, that now they feel like they can put the event on that they want to. So it's
okay. So if we had somebody out there listening that all of a sudden said, "Hey, I need to give these guys a call," how could they get in touch with you?
Well, go to the OBRA website, obra.org, go down to the contacts page, and I'm on there.
Gotcha.
So click on my email and send me a note. So Oregon Bicycle Racing Association, obra.org, and you can find me and send me a note and ask me, and maybe we can set up a phone conversation to talk more about it.
Great. All right.
So if I understand this right, if a race promoter is putting on a race, you have to have insurance. You have to be bonded or insured for the race in case something happens. And they've traditionally only had the option to be insured through USAC. But NABRA gives them a second option, which is much less expensive than what USAC offers. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. And so the actual upfront permitting fee is less, and then, we call it a head tax. The post-race, how much they pay per rider for insurance and surcharge is much less than what it is through USA Cycling.
And the insurance covers injuries, potential lawsuits.
Yeah, exactly. So what they really want it for is one of the events I put on had 5 different jurisdictions. We had Deschutes County, we had City of Bend, we had ODOT with Forest Service, and some private. So each one of those entities that were doing the race on their property wants a certificate naming them as additional insured.
I see.
And so you provide those certificates, and it also provides, liability relief for the promoter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. A little bit of an education there.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, let's talk about this next article that is kind of something that's kind of near and dear to our hearts, and that's road racing. And Chuck had brought this to our attention as well. And basically, it's titled "The U.S. Road Racing is in a Downward Spiral." What comes next? And I just wanted to know, what about that article really spoke to you, Chuck?
For one thing, Neil Rogers has been around the sport forever, and his insights are great. Travis McCabe said something that stuck with me, is that cycling in the U.S. is healthy And I think so. I pull these little positive tidbits out of there. That cycling in the U.S. is healthy. That gives us a great platform if we want to grow the sport of bike racing, because the sport is healthy. Some quotes from Derek Bouchard Hall too stuck with me. We had these two different data points. We had the Greg LeMond years, a little bit of a gap, and then we had the postal Lance Armstrong years. And all of a sudden we had national heroes. If you take those two data points away, it's kind of like where we are today from a professional bike racing standpoint, and where the U.S. is on the world stage. Will the U.S. have another Tour de France winner? Probably, but it's not going to happen very often. We're kind of back to that place that we were pre-Le Mans, kind of between Le Mans and Postal, and which isn't unhealthy, but it's
we need this is my personal opinion, but I think we need not only a Tour winner, we need a character. So I mean, you think of it's not like America's had we're definitely not in the postal era, but it's not like we have a lack of top end talent. I mean, TJ's been up there, Talansky was up there, Chris Horner won the Vuelta, but none of those three guys, and this is not speaking against them, but they're not transcendent athletes.
Right.
Lance and Lamont were transcendent.
We need to recruit Sagan and get his U.S. citizenship.
Absolutely. Could you?
But that was a point in that article too, is that Americans cycling needs heroes. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily need, good cycling.
Fast riders. We need a hero.
They need a hero.
Yeah, we've got personality for days in athletes, and the best cyclist in the world is probably not riding a bike right now. I mean, we've got athletes for days that can just.
We've got some great juniors coming up.
Oh,
if you look at the U23 and junior worlds, America's doing great. We are.
Yeah,
just need these kids to
in all disciplines too, which
characters.
is exciting. It's in.
I think the part of the paradigm shift needs to come from getting away from our staple sports. And we've talked about that before on this particular podcast. Everybody just thinks baseball, football, basketball, soccer, and they just naturally gravitate to those. And there's so many great athletes that go that way. And maybe some of the other fringe sports that go out there, and they're not finding road cycling or just cycling in general until later in life, and they'll discover it maybe after an injury or when they've hung up their cleats or whatever, and they've stopped playing the particular sport, and then they discover the sport, and it's unfortunately a little bit too late. So for us, we need to really invest in our junior programs. We need to show kids that there are other means besides the staple sports that we've talked about, and get them involved in riding bikes. I mean, there's the best athletes are out there. We've just got to promote our sport. We have to recruit them and bring them in, and we have to show them the ropes, and then we have to build an infrastructure for them to be successful in.
Yeah, I think one of the other quotes from that article was that the domestic cycling scene should have 20 Evolo cycling teams. Mm-hmm. These U23 development teams, no more 30
more than
30-year-old,
just the handicap team and a couple other
30-year-old, semi-pro bike racers. They need to all be those U23
young
development teams, and have a pipeline to get those juniors onto those U23 teams. I think USA Cycling's doing a pretty good job with that. Some of the resources that they have for junior cycling. One thing that was stuck in my mind about OBRA and OBRA's relationship to that is, it would be another great opportunity for sponsorship is for OBRA to have a junior cycling team. We take the top junior athletes and they wear an OBRA kit and they go to the national championships, just like the junior USA cyclists go to the world championships.
Yep.
OBRA will, with coaches and the athletes, go to the USA Cycling National Championships and show them what Oregon can do.
So just taking a note from soccer here. So we had talked about this before. Your best U.S. talent, their end goal is still to go to Europe, which is okay. I mean, that's cycling centric, but that may be part of the problem as well. But if we want to take a note from soccer, your best U.S. soccer players are not staying in the MLS. They go over and play in Europe. But the great thing about soccer development in the U.S. is that from a what you would compare to a juniors development, each state has teams, elite teams that go and play each other at a national championship. just like you mentioned, OBRA gets a team. Why doesn't each state or region develop a junior cycling team, and there's your national championship?
Then all of a sudden you develop a fan base around that because
I would watch that.
The Oregonians are going to support the Oregon racers. And
I would watch every second of that. If OBRA had a U18 and a U23 cycling team, and they went and competed against California, Colorado, Vermont, Maine, the Northeast.
It would be amazing to have the resources to have training camps for those athletes and kind of throughout the year, and then take them to the national championships, not just in road, in mountain, and cyclocross.
And this is where, I mean, I think the old pros, like, you know, what Hincapie's done with his team, and I know maybe some people, because of certain drug allegations and all this, would step away from that stuff, but the old Postal team, the old American cycling heroes, come back and maybe be a part of that development process would be really cool, like Hincapie's done.
It would. Yeah, I agree.
Gotcha. What else about this article spoke to you?
You know, those are the two real key points that I took out of it. I try to, it's we all know the costs of road cycling and promoting road races is just going up and up and up. We're more fortunate in Central Oregon, so I don't experience the same costs that the folks in Portland do, or just in the Willamette Valley. But when I hear stories of Zone 5 having to pay $3,500 for certified flaggers on one of their road races, it's just, there goes the margin just in hiring certified flaggers.
And in that same breath, I mean, if it becomes so prohibitive, I mean, the two Davids from Zone 5 are doing a fantastic job, and they're putting on some great racing, and they're giving us a lot of stuff to go out there and get involved in. What if they decided that it's just not worth it to them? All of a sudden, like, half our road racing calendar is evaporated and gone. That's a lot of eggs in the basket of just them. So I want to do what we can to make sure that they're successful.
You bet. And what's exciting is I have two women promoters that have come to me this year, and they want to put on road races. They come from road racing backgrounds. It's going to be great to have women race promoters in the state, and hopefully, if Zone 5 decides to phase out, they've got some established races, and they can share their events with these new promoters coming in. So some of those classic events that have been around a while can stick around, and we just get some new blood in there.
Gotcha. So in your opinion, what can we as racers and teams do to better support bolstering the road racing scene, other than just registering and signing up? And what else can we do?
Be willing to jump in your car and travel an hour and a half to go to a bike race, or 2 hours.
We do that. Yeah.
We do that.
Well, it's pretty tough to get folks out of Portland when you can race your bike 5 days a week in town.
That's true.
And I get it. I'd love to live here. Boy, I'd be out at PIR Monday and Tuesday. I'd go to the track. I'd do Tabor. I'd do Champs short track series, and it's a great place. I wonder though too if events like the Tabor series and PIR are robbing from the weekend events, the more traditional road races.
I think you are. I think you're seeing some of that, just because if you're a competitive person, you want to do as well as you possibly can. So you have to pick and choose which one you're going to do well at. And you don't want to pay money just to go ride circles out at PIR. I mean, granted, it's not terribly expensive, but it's still, I mean, it's an effort, and it's, $15, $20 to go out there and race. And you don't want to just show up just to go, pay $20 to get a workout in. You want to go out there and compete. So if you're picking that over a weekend race, then maybe. I mean, there's a point there.
No, and I love those events. They need to stay there. The way I always looked at the weekly series I did when I was racing was, that's just training. That's like, I'm going to experiment and try something new here, right? I'm going to try to take a flyer, right? I'm going to just try things, and it's just a training race. It's a good workout. It's not my A race, And so, those are great series. There's series overall prizes, and chasing those is great. And you can earn bar points for yourself and for your team. And, they're great. But I kind of do feel that because they've become competitive, and that's, become people's race, that's why some of the weekend road races are seeing smaller, it's just smaller numbers too. It's just, less folks road racing, but that may have an effect.
I've got a group of people that may be able to fill that for you. There's people that do like swimming and running after these bike things that will travel like upwards of 12 hours in their car for races and have a lot of money and like to travel. So like maybe some triathlon marketing can definitely help. There's a lot of juniors going into draft legal racing there too who need to be doing road racing. So
yeah,
just another small group to look at.
Yeah, that's a funny thing that you bring that up with the triathlon. Has OBRA ever entertained the idea of taking on triathlon as one of the disciplines that they will support or promote?
We could. Our insurance allows us. I've put on a couple of 5Ks, or we haven't put it on, but we've promoted or insured a couple of 5K races. That's a good discussion, Jake, for the board to look at that and the philosophy. It's I always come from the standpoint that do what you do and do it well. And if you start doing too many things, you kind of lose focus on what your purpose is.
But definitely to just plug this for you guys as a thinking point. So out east, and in Colorado, there's a big growing draft legal group that's coming up through this next generation. And these are kids who will do road racing. You look at Ben Canute, who's probably your most, that guy does Arizona, California bike racing and races as a 1-2 and is fast and is an Olympic hopeful for triathlon. And in his generation, there's been this big push to get into road racing from these draft legal kids. So OBRA wanting to keep its core as a cycling centric, organization, obviously, doing more the draft legal route would still be by your core because you're still organizing a bike race, basically.
It's still a bike race.
Still,
right.
and you're working with kids who will be road racers with you too throughout the year. So they would road race in the spring.
Yeah.
And they'll draft legal race the rest of the year. So there's definitely a fertile group to look at there. Yeah. And also there's a ton of juniors doing draft legal. That's what these kids are getting into these days.
Yeah, mostly California.
Really, it's all over. Actually, some of the fastest draft legal racers are from out east.
Are they?
Where I used to race, yeah. A couple kids from out there, a couple kids from Georgia. They're very, very fast, yeah.
Chuck, one other thing that you provided us ahead of time here was this spreadsheet with all the statistics. Anything that you care to talk about there in terms of the numbers of what we're seeing from OBRA?
Well, as you saw from the spreadsheet, there was a huge bubble back in. You do you have it pulled up?
I do.
Yeah. So starting in 2006, what was it? 1,700 members, and it ballooned up to in 2012. Was that the max?
I believe so. Sorry, I'm trying to track you.
That's okay. It kind of followed, I guess, some of that Lance excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even that was post Lance excitement, because I was looking at that article you had sent us too, and they were saying, was it 2012 is when it hit its peak, and that stayed through 2015, and it's barely dipped recently, but not a lot for USAC racing membership.
Right.
I think that was since 2002 is what it took from, which would be the end of the Lance era, towards the end of the Lance era. Yeah.
What was his first tour? 99?
99, and then he won all the way through 2005, and then came back in 2009?
Yeah.
Technically 2010.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I think there was still some, you see the growth from 2006. I think part of it was still we had a national hero and people wanted to get involved. The fact that OBRA is still going to be at about 3,600 members puts us, even with where we were back in 2010, probably. That's good. That 3,600 people in a state the size of Oregon that want to pin a number on and race their bikes, pretty darn good. And our decline is, I was looking at some numbers from around the country, and their racing numbers have declined exponentially, like much more than Oregon's. So, looking nationally, I think we're still in a pretty strong position here in Oregon. We're going to get about 38,000 racer days this year in Oregon, which is going to be equal with last year. So that's one guy maybe doing 10 races, or one, it's every time someone races. So
I've got a kind of broad question here for you. How does OBRA start to support the younger juniors coming through that may not financially be able to afford cycling? Because if we look at somebody like Lance came from not exactly, you know, rich background by any means, very, very humble background. So to create that next American hero, how do we get those kids involved in the sport?
So Joel Fletcher, he's OBRA's marketing director, but he also runs the OBRA Junior program, and Stephen Beardsley was involved with that for a while. We've got a fair amount of money in that account, and they put on events. They put on different camps throughout the year, and there's scholarships available for athletes that can't afford it. So we take care of the kids to come to those training camps.
That's awesome. That's good to see that scholarships.
I'd love to
out
see
there
that.
exist.
I'd love to see that fund grow, and I think we can do it. That's that's one of the easier sells is to support junior cycling.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think we can make a bigger impact from a team perspective too. Getting all the teams involved to help out with that process, I think, would be a big win for us all. Good. Okay. Any other questions on that, guys? I want to jump into the next article. Back in podcast 29, all the way back in podcast 29.
2 weeks.
Exactly. We talked about an article in there, and it was basically basically what's going on with road racing, and it was the wicked problem road cycling faces. There's a lot of good topics in there, and Chuck brought that up as well. And even though we talked about it, I still think it's worth revisiting and going back into some of the topics that they bring up in there. Are there any items in there that really speak to you?
I try to find the positive in all these kind of articles that are
doom and
kind
gloom.
of doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And my spin on there was a section in that article about teams, and we're coming back to teams, and some of these larger, really large teams have gone away. Clubs that have everything from juniors to pro Cat 1s to masters, women, everybody that kind of help develop new racers and get people to races, and those have gone away. So none of those big teams, Lagrange and some of the other big ones, are gone. That's an area that I think in Oregon we can address that through the teams, and just to get people back out racing again is through the team structure. That one struck me. Going back to the other article. Another quote from Derek Bouchard Hall, it kind of reiterates what's in the Wicked Problem article, is that he goes, even at USA Cycling, they don't know what the solution is. They cannot put their finger on what the cause of the decline. There's so many different factors out there. Population growth, the being able to put on host a bike race without disrupting people's lives.
Especially in this port. I mean, you think about Portland, Seattle, Bend. You just explained it. Your town went from 18,000 to 100,000.
Right. What's still cool about Bend is I can put on a crit. I don't have to have police. I get a right-of-way permit. I barricade the roads, and I get to put on a criterium. In Portland, you gotta. For some reason, the police union says you have to have police out there. So not only are you paying police time and a half.
Why is that? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it's a union thing. I think that's kind of what I've heard. Be nice to get into the mayor's office.
Yeah.
And learn more about that. The other thing they have to do if they want to put on criterium racing needs to be in front of people, right? It needs to be in a location where people can watch it, because that's where you see the excitement of bike racing.
Yeah.
Watching the downtown criterium in
Cascades,
Bend.
Yep. Cascade Classic, that's perfect.
That'll make you want to race your bike because of the speed and the crowds, and so putting it on in an office park, doesn't solve that problem.
That's a good point.
Portland used to have some criteriums that had great exposure, and they just got too expensive to do.
Now, would Vancouver need the same police?
From what I understand, yes.
Okay.
And the other thing that happens up here in Bend, we don't have paid parking, right? But here, if you close a street, the promoter has to pay the revenue that would have come from that paid parking on that street.
You're telling me the city can't just be like, all right, you're good for these 8 hours.
Yeah, no. So that's so it's just it goes back to both the articles that the cost of
Can't tell everybody just to bring a bunch of quarters and put them in the little slots there.
Yeah, you know what?
Just on your way down the street.
We joke about in Portland if we just had a protest on bikes, you know, because
A very fast protest on bikes.
They'd close the streets.
Or how about you just have you just have the race during the protest. There, you just conveniently have it at that
There's
time.
already police there.
Yeah, there's tons of it.
You're
You
covered.
just pick a weekend. Yeah, any weekend.
Yeah, or any day of the week.
Yeah.
That's funny. Going back to the other article, the about the wicked problems, it touches on a few other problems. The events and the promoters kind of being an issue with a lot of the teams getting away from actually putting on the races, and then it's all falling into the hands of promoters. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, you know, the team I had, we put on a race. And that was a big part of our team because all of a sudden now, you know, we had a team of 35 people, so we're covered on volunteers. And it was a great way for our team to give back. And if we did it right, we put some money into the team coffers to help pay for travel and race entries and kits, etc. I don't know why. To me, it allows racers to know what goes into everything
Putting on a
behind the
race,
scenes.
Sense of respect for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, at one point in time, if you were to have a team within OBRA, you were supposed to put on a race, and you were also supposed to volunteer to do like some, reffing or some officiating. That seems to have kind of gone away. And I say this kind of in jest, and I'm probably going to get poked for it, but I haven't been asked to do any of that one time. I've been asked if we have any volunteers that can come out and help out with stuff, but I've never been directly addressed. Now I know that I sit on the board of directors, and so I should be asking myself to do more here. But do we get back to that?
That's an area that kind of has struck me, and I guess I need to get some historical knowledge from the people that are bound, information on why that shifted away, and what they feel like we can do to shift it back. Right now that there's maybe half the teams get a big discount for putting on something, whether they're doing a trail work on mountain bike trails, they get a big discount for their teams. If they put on a race, they get a team discount. Other types of events, we allow the teams to do that to join OBRA as an OBRA team for less money, but it's not like it's a lot. And some of them do put on events. There's definitely teams that do.
Gotcha. Loss of venues, and we just kind of touched on that a little bit with respect to growing populations and whatnot. I don't see that correcting itself unless you can get into the mayor's office and become best friends with them, and all of a sudden we've got Criterium racing in downtown Portland again. I just don't see that changing because cities are seemingly upside down financially, and they're trying to squeeze every last penny out of everything that they possibly can, and it's just not reasonable for us to think that we can shell out that kind of money. People aren't going to want to pay $100 to go to a bike race. What do we do?
Yeah, the $1 million question there. Jake, I don't know. It's getting, part of it is getting in the mayor's office and getting in the city councilors' offices.
Why does a city like Portland that should not, with the growth of the city, should not be struggling financially by any means? Why would they be concerned with things like little things that can poke holes in this, like parking meter fees and things how could that be the thing that's bogging this down?
This politics, man.
Like I've mentioned before, we're supposed to be the beacon of cycling in America, aren't we?
Yeah.
That just grinds my gears because that's such hypocrisy to say you're the beacon of cycling in America and then not have a criteria. Bloomington, Indiana has a criterium, and it is awesome.
Yeah.
Would anybody say Bloomington, Indiana is the shining beacon of cycling in America?
Yeah. Did any of you remember the
people from Bloomington may
old
say that,
San Francisco Grand Prix? It was a professional race.
Yeah.
Portland would be a perfect city to have that type of event.
Yeah.
A circuit race and go up the hills. And
we kind of want to be like San Francisco, don't we? Is that
Yeah.
what we're trying to be?
Yeah.
I don't know. Ask people in Portland. Isn't that what if you ask the mayor of Portland, do we kind of want to be like San Francisco? Probably yes.
Well, I was invited to Representative Blumenauer was in Portland. He invited a bunch of cycling industry professionals, influencers to come and kind of have the discussion. It's even from Blumenauer, who rides his bike to work every day in the Capitol, and he's, in his bow tie, and he really doesn't have any interest in bike racing. He has a huge interest in cycling for transportation, and I think that's the same for the city here too. It's racing's a different deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's discussions that we can have down the road, but there's got to be a way to battle this. And it's really, I mean, if you have to push it into a more rural area, if you have to go into an office park or a business park to do it, I mean, and that's your only means to have a bike race, then okay, you got to do that. So let's think outside of the box. How can we get more eyeballs on this? I mean, with the advent of social media and smartphones and whatnot, it's very easy to get more people watching stuff. It's just how do you tie all that together? Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm not gonna divulge this, but the therapeutic team here put on the red line criterium.
Yeah.
Swan Island, and talking with the guy that really kind of drove that a little earlier, he's got some really creative ideas for doing that. I don't want to divulge where he's talking about, but that's really what it takes is creative promoters. Why couldn't you have a downtown criterium in Beaverton, or McMinnville, which is they're close to the city, without the city politics.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Anything else on that article that you wanted to talk about, Jack?
No, you guys talked about it on the couple of podcasts ago. What was you guys' take on it? What was
we've kind of touched on a lot of that. I mean, Matt, did you have any input on that?
I mean, so I always, have that kind of triathlon perspective where it's like, who are we battling against? We're battling against all these crazy other things, other sports, other events. We have like color runs and Spartan races, and there's just so many different opportunities for, the moms and dads of the world to go out and do, their athletic event. And I think that puts a ton of pressure on, the traditional cycling promotions or promoters or people that are putting on events, and they're just hoping to get as many numbers as possible to either break even or maybe even squeeze a profit. And a lot of those color runs, I think those are for-profit events. Whereas a lot of the cycling,
I have actually been part of the timing organization for one of those.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything disparaging about them, but I'll say it is purely for money. That is
pure profit.
That's the McDonald's of the endurance world.
Yeah. And I mean, they know what they're doing. They're you're looking at a for-profit event. You're going to get a shirt. You're going to run around a parking lot, and maybe they throw some colors at you or something stupid, right? So it's like this is what
super affordable.
This is what we're up against. And I think it's important for us to, have promoters that are like you said, thinking very creatively, because I think people, once they've done it, they do see whether or not it's kind of a genuine event or if it's just kind of garbage. I do think you can see through that, sauce, but I also think there's an element of this is easy. And I think promoters are going to have to kind of really think creatively about, what can we do? How can we make our event different? Maybe the location isn't the most important thing. As long as we're doing events and we're doing it doing something slightly different and making it kind of fun. So,
and this is what I think that wicked problem gets down to. And really everybody at this table can talk to this because I'm from the millennial generation here. So Chuck, you'll be having been in endurance sports for as long as you can speak to this, but I personally have a lot more respect for the generation right after me in how you guys keep your competitive nature. Now I know that endurance sports competitiveness is not for everybody, but when we're talking about keeping road cycling alive and racing alive, there has to be that innate, I want to improve and I want to race other people, which is something that I think your generation was great at maintaining through your whole lifetime. My generation, as I've talked about, we're soft. I do not see that same sort of drive I see it in pockets, in very small pockets, but my generation would much rather go and morning drink and then go to a color run and then go out into a brewery and hang out there and then walk along the river, then go and race a bike race out in Medford.
It's still something that I think it's like, okay, well, recognize the fact that, they can do this item and they can do it and then they can promote themselves on their social media platforms and Instagram it, right?
That's where you've got to get them. Yeah.
So,
but that's sad.
But that's not, right. It is.
But it's true.
It's
You're
not
right.
exclusive to color runs or Spartan races
We're
or
just using
whatever,
color runs as an
right?
example.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So, but I mean, like, I still think, whether, cycling organizations or whatever it is, if they do something creative, people are going to take photos and they're going to, get it up on their social media or whatever it is. Like, even like the half marathon that I did yesterday, it was kind of like there was nothing wrong with that event. It was fantastic, raised a lot of money for a good cause. But you tag these photos a certain way, and there's like that, like, hey, these people participated in this, and people can really get behind that. And cycling, it's got its own twist to it, so it's just a matter of setting things up, right? Like where the promoter is going to set it up a certain way to where people can kind of get behind it and kind of develop that kind of
cycling racing by nature. And this is what I've always thought with triathlon. Cycling by nature is a grittier sort of competitive sport. It is. I mean, it's not nearly, you don't have the million different age group winners. Everybody gets a trophy sort of mentality at a cycling race. It is, you won, you didn't win, you come back, you do better next time. That is different than some of the more recreational running world races, which does allow more of that social media, I'm a winner sort of mentality. Triathlon does a good job of that too, I would say.
Yeah, everybody's a winner.
Everybody's a winner. And that's, that's fine. But when we're talking about reviving gritty competitiveness that I think road cycling more thrives off of, that would be a wicked problem. Like me being the devil's advocate here, I'm saying like that.
Absolutely.
With the people coming into their late 20s and 30s, that is a wicked problem. Because I know friends of mine who, if you go to a road race and get your butt slapped, like they're not going to want to come back because that is hard racing. So...
And if you think about any running race, you get a medal when you finish.
Yes, you do. Triathlon, what's the first thing they do? Oh. Hey, you were 5th in your age group. Here's a medal.
Or
what does that mean? I don't know. But
no, you're 500th in your age group. Here's a medal.
So, thank you. You're dead last. Here's a medal. Yeah.
In the race yesterday, and I love the group that puts on this race, but like,
I do love the Girlfriends Run for the record.
But
it's awesome.
Yeah, for the record. But at the end of the event, everyone that crosses the finish line gets a medal put on by a fireman. And that's, to me, it's like, okay, that's cool. Like, I have no problem with that.
Is he an attractive fireman?
Yeah, this was like, that was part of it. That was part of it. It was someone better looking than me, which is very important.
Cool,
so
that's shocking.
Shocking. No. So I think it was kind of like, that's just one little tweak, right? Like one little marketing thing. And maybe, like,
think about the Spartans race too. I mean, I know guys my age racing that, and they get to the end and get to thump their chest and say, I did this. And nobody wants to look at it and be like, oh, that cross-country guy there just beat you by 35 minutes in that race. You didn't put your medal away. Like,
wait, is
28.
this is the solution right here to OBRA. We just need medals for every finisher
participation
at every race.
All right.
Please no. Please no.
Yeah, that's right. But we laugh about it. But like, I mean,
that's the wicked problem.
But
I
maybe
really
there's
think
something,
that's the core problem.
Well, but maybe there is something there where it's like, hey, we do a girls only race and the firemen are there at the finish line to high five you. I'm not saying that that's a good idea. Actually, I think that's a horrible idea. But at the same time, like all of us agree that we want more women in cycling.
Absolutely.
All of us recognize that there's a problem.
We need like more Kims. Like Kim is a gritty competitor. Yeah. We just need more Kims.
More Kims don't exist. She's an amazing lady. But like, I do think that we want to open it up, and I don't think that we want to be exclusive at all. And I think that the grittiness that we've talked about could be a turnoff to the 45-year-old mom that's maybe not getting in 250 miles per week.
Yeah.
See, but I'll disagree with you there, Matt, and play devil's advocate. I think the 45-year-old mom's a whole lot grittier than the 26-year-old male in Portland right now. I will talk myself down here. I really will. Like I think that 45-year-old mother is more gritty, more competitive, and more committed to the sport than the guy going to the brewery every single Friday and Saturday and thinking, I still want to jump out there and be competitive, goes out there and gets his, butt kicked and never comes back and pins on another number.
We sure have some women heroes right now in the cycling world. Yeah. I mean, the U.S. is really deep and really strong.
U.S. women's cycling is doing a whole lot better on the national stage than the men's
on the international stage.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
international stage.
So there's definitely some heroes out there. I remember watching Corinne Rivera win the Downtown Cascade Cycling Classic crit on junior gears.
Oh my gosh.
When she was, I think she was
How old was she?
17, and she won that
17.
crit
Oh my
against some of the
gosh.
top women's teams in the country, good crit racers.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch her progression.
And I mean, on the track, we're doing incredible from the women's perspective right
Absolutely.
now.
Absolutely.
What's your take on competitive? Well, not competitive, but like the competition between people that are going out and doing like stuff on, like, say, Zwift. Like, you can go on and you can do the full racing deal on Zwift, and there's races for days. Do you feel like that's taking away from the OBRA scene?
It's so new that it's hard. I don't know. Again, maybe it very well could.
Yeah. Do you think that there's something there where OBRA could sanction something on Zwift?
Then
sanctions like kind of a heavy word,
you
but
kind of have to charge then, and that's the
Would
cool
you have to
thing about
pay like police for that too? Or is
yeah,
that-
yeah, that's right. You got to pay for the parking.
Cyber police.
Yeah.
Let's not joke about that. That could be a thing here.
there's got to be a community of people that you can plug into, though, to at least market. And maybe if OBRA were to do some off-season races on there, just for sake of building membership or data, or like just getting people involved with our sport, because what else are we doing here in the Pacific Northwest from December till February? It's pouring outside.
racing.
So
I mean, I guess you could even set it up like an OBRA road race where you have categories, and you just race against your category.
There's a lot of stuff going on there, and that's definitely a conversation I think that we should have at some point in time. I think that there might be a play there to at least attract some more people to the cycling scene, because they're able to get on there and they can step away from it at any point in time, and they can be as strong or as weak as they are.
And there's like a world championship race for that now too, isn't there?
It's growing. Like,
I think there was this
by
last
leaps
year.
and bounds.
Yeah.
But someone can go in there and get their butt handed to them, but they're not going to be as dejected as they would be after going,
in front of people. and-
Exactly.
Yeah.
That'd be a good entry for people, just to kind of build their fitness through the winter and
Give
maybe
this
be
a try.
confident enough.
Give this a try.
It could be a little gateway drug to get more people out there bicycle racing. I'm
Pin on
serious.
this virtual number and
What about something like the Savvy Island Shootout? This is a topic that we talked about as well. So I've heard promoters complain about the Savvy Island Shootout taking away from racing, because guys are just showing up and they're doing this unofficial bike ride that has a built-in race component to it.
those types of rides have been around forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife used to do those up around Lake Whatcom up in Bellingham when she was coming up racing.
Gotcha.
It'd be a group
That's
ride
a
that would
beautiful ride, wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
that's
turned
really cool.
turned into a race. So that's nothing new. I look at it the opposite. I think it's set up to give people more confidence, maybe to go actually race that have never done it before.
And that's a fast, strong group. I think most of your people showing up to the Savvy Island race are racing, I would think, right?
For the most part, there's
Most
a
of those guys?
lot of people that are saying, though, that a guy that would have done 10 races might only go out and do 5 races because he's getting his racing fix from doing something like the Savvy Island Shootout. And I'm with Chuck. I disagree, and I think that it's kind of on us as from the racing community to go out there and, like I said in the podcast before, go shake a hand, go meet people, go talk to them, say you absolutely killed it. You should be out here and checking out this race. This race would suit you really well.
Or join Dialed.
Or any other team out there. Any other team out there. And,
But mostly Dialed.
and use that as a platform to go and recruit.
In Bend, we have the Hammerfest every Tuesday night, and same ride every night, and it's a race.
Which is the faster ride, Savvy or Hammerfest?
I've never been to Savvy. The Hammerfest has got hills.
Oh, okay. Savvy doesn't have a single hill.
Yeah. And then occasionally Ian Boswell will show up. And
I'll give the nod to the Hammerfest. Then.
Yeah,
Do some of the triathletes show up to that?
Yep,
they do.
Yeah,
So is Jesse Thomas showing up to that?
Or Matt
never
Lieto.
seen. Lieto used to show
Lieto.
up on those, and more
that
so the
would be a
Saturday. But
faster ride
the
then.
interesting thing about that ride is it did turn into a race when weekly racing went away in Bend, and it got dangerous. Guys, running stop signs to not get dropped from the lead group, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we brought back the weekly crits, that ride got a little safer. They could get their racing out of the way on Wednesdays, and then on Tuesdays, have a hard ride, but it was not quite as dangerous.
Gotcha. And my last point that I'll make here on this one is texting and driving. And everybody knows my feelings on this because I talk about it ad nauseum. What do we do to combat this? How do we get this message out there? And how can we utilize OBRA and their membership and their people and their connections to help just society in general to stop this?
Yeah, distracted driving. People are losing their lives. Happened to you, didn't it? I mean, that was cause of your accident,
distracted
wasn't it?
driving,
Yeah. I mean, that the word is out there. I mean, it's like the national media is on it. What did I just see? I saw the best advertisement the other day about this guy that helped everybody, lent a helping hand at work and this whole thing, and then all of a sudden he gets caught in his car texting, so he's no longer such a good guy. You know, he was like everybody's. Jake, I don't know what OBRA can do. But it's having an effect. I think people are feel less safe riding on the roads, training on the roads because of that. In Bend, there's a hearing tomorrow for a driver that killed a cyclist last winter, and the Bend police didn't write a citation to the driver. The Bend Police Department feels like cyclists need to yield to the motorists.
Oh, jeez.
That was a collective eye roll, sigh, and terrible look from everybody at this table.
You know, the idea that I'm going to go to the hearing tomorrow. A lot of the cycling community is going to show up with our bike helmets
I don't understand this separation between motorists and cyclists, because I don't know about you all at this table, but I also drive a car. So
exactly.
I don't know why a motorist thinks that, oh, you're a cyclist. Like, no, I drive cars too, and I will wait behind a person going 12 miles an hour on a bike because I value human life. Is it just that simple?
I won't claim this idea, but wouldn't it be amazing if every 6th grader in the country got a bicycle and there was a class that they took on how to ride their bikes through town? And it was
that would be awesome.
And in order to get your driver's license maybe you get your bike when you're 12. In order for you to get your driver's license at 16, you have to log 1,000 miles on your bike.
That would be incredible.
It gives you 4 years to do that.
Do you know how many society problems you'd solve with that program?
But the coolest thing about that is all those kids, once they get their license, they're going to pay attention to cyclists because that's what they did. Yeah. And
it's funny.
That wasn't my idea.
I do this with my kids all the time, and I've seen it come up in articles. I'm like, somebody else was kind of thinking the same thing. When I'm in the car with my kids, we always do an over/under whenever we're driving. Hey, kids, how many bikes do you think we'll see today on our drive from here to there? And we'll come up with our numbers, and then we will start counting all the cyclists. But you know what that's causing my kids to do? Pay attention to the cyclists on the road.
Right.
And it really, it's a paradigm shift for people. Like, you start to like engage with like your surroundings. You start looking for these people like, oh, okay, that's a great game to play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people that aren't cyclists.
No.
And so
it's just
we have a different perspective for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one thing that we can do with our kids. But another thing is just, I really, it makes me want to beat my head against the wall just thinking about this. But these people talk about how utterly like terrible cyclists are, and we're the worst, and we're breaking all the rules, we're doing all this other stuff. Like, okay, I might roll a stop sign, like slow down but not come to a complete stop. I'm not like killing people, you know. That's literally what they're doing, and they make it sound like we are holding them up in all of their they're commuting around, they're driving, and they're being put behind, like getting where they need to go by 20 minutes. And it's like, all right, I've lived in cycling hotbeds all of my life, and I have been on the road driving my car, dealing with people out on the road. I can't think of any issues, maybe once where I was held up for like 3 or 4 seconds. Yeah. I'm sorry, but that doesn't constitute the bad rap that we get. And
no,
it's just it's ridiculous.
A lot of people listen to Lars Larson up here in Portland, and he really spews that negative.
I think it just says a lot more about you as a person if you have that sort of anger towards somebody that you don't know. This is not a cycling problem. This is not anything cyclists are doing. Are there cyclists out there blowing stoplights when they shouldn't be? Sure. Yeah, that happens because cyclists are also motorists and there's humans. Cyclists are also humans, so there's gonna be jerk cyclists out there. But if you're getting that angry at somebody to where you would want to physically harm and maybe kill them, it says a whole lot more about you as a human being and just us as a society. I think this is a societal problem, not a what can cyclists do. This is a what is wrong with people these days.
Yeah.
I mean, look at any Facebook social message board. You think about if you came face to face with that cyclist, how many of those things you think that have been yelled at you would be said face to face?
Right.
Zero. Because now we have this anonymity with I can hit you with my car and then speed off, and I don't have to help you now. That's terrifying. I mean, it's the same thing with, hate that gets spewed on Facebook, Twitter, all of that. There's an anonymity to it that you would not say if somebody was looking at you in the face. Yeah. Which is kind of scary, but
yeah, good point.
And unfortunately, that's driving people off the road, and I think that's a big problem. I think for road racing, and I think good on you for getting ahead of the gravel grinding, racing and whatnot. But it's unfortunate that we have to deal with that. It really is. So,
I think it's cyclical. I think the pendulum will swing. I'm confident that it will. Okay. It's the most beautiful sport in the world.
I agree.
It is, and it's not going to go away. It's it's here to stay. So,
Chuck, I love your positive attitude.
I like that.
It's like every article we talk about, like cycling's spiraling down, and you're like, I think it's good. No, I like it. I like the positive takes on this and that. No, I think you're right. I think I think it's definitely gonna. I think we're kind of in the thick of it right now. I think we have smartphones that are very distracting. I think that this is probably the pinnacle of as bad as it's going to get, and then I think we're going to have. I actually think that we're going to have cars that'll drive themselves in another 10, 15 years.
That'd be great.
And in those, we can program in respect for cyclists, which we can't program that into people, unfortunately. But I think when people can fully be distracted by their phones and let their cars just drive, and whether or not the car has to wait 10 minutes behind a slow cyclist, the person's not going to care because they're going to be distracted by their Facebook. They're going to be fine. Right. So I think we're kind of in this really bad spot right now where people are distracted by their smartphones and disrespectful of cyclists. And it's just a tough time to be on the road.
And, this is my experience in Bend with the growth that we've experienced. That the danger on the road isn't the newcomers coming to town. Mm-hmm. It's the people whose lifestyles have changed because of the growth, and they're angry about the growth. Yeah. And the growth has slowed down their commute, and the growth has created more traffic, and it's the folks that have been around a while. It's not all the new people, and I'm sure it's the same here.
Who's driving a car in Bend to work? Isn't everything within a bike ride of itself in work?
No. Hey, I got to drive 15 minutes to Costco. That's a big commute for me.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a good discussion. Let's call that a wrap, and let's jump into one last thing. Lance, hit us up with one last thing, my man.
I've got nothing this week. I've got nothing. So I'm just excited for the weekend up. I might be going to Utah for a little while. It's my son's birthday, and so I might leave town for a while.
And we've got a weekend off from the Cross Crusades this weekend coming up, Craig.
We do. There is a race in Canby that you can go do that isn't part of the Cross Crusades, and it's a great promoter and a great venue, so I hope people go do that cross race. But
are you going to be open for a ride this weekend, Saturday, Lance?
Not if I'm in Utah.
Oh, yeah, you may be in Utah. Well, if you don't go to Utah.
Yes, I would
Let's actually ride.
Evan, one last thing.
We actually just started this cool little thing at Movement Revolution on Sundays. We may potentially be doing a group kind of focus Zwift ride through the winter. So anybody who wants to join that, you can hit me up or go, contact Robbie over at Movement Revolution so we can get a group over there. It's a fun little iron style bike training.
Cool. I think their website is movementrevolutionpt.com.
Yes.
You can Google for it. It's basically their logo.
Google their Facebook
swirl,
too.
Swirly logo. But people can check that out.
Yeah. It'll be a fun group there, and I'll be there. Super boring. Probably not looking down on my aero bike. So
All right, Chuck, one last thing.
Single speed world championships in Bend.
Oh yeah,
that's why the Cross Crusade isn't happening this weekend.
Yeah, because of single speed.
Yeah, I think there's whiskey aid stations. I don't think spandex is allowed.
That's awesome. It's spandex is not allowed.
It's going to be crazy. I'm going to be out of town. Thank goodness.
Are jean shorts allowed?
Yeah,
or is that
jorts,
promoted?
Yeah.
Jorts are promoted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, one last thing.
Yeah, let's see. A little while ago, I went and spent a whole bunch of time up on Mount Hood, multiple trips up there to Mount Hood. And, we kind of talked about it on the podcast, and I basically was like, can't talk about it. And that was the thought process. It was like, okay, we're not going to talk about it. But this week, the video that I worked on with this group, it's mostly a group of pro triathletes, and they're kind of under this umbrella called Transition 4. They put on this
They're
event.
not just any pro triathletes.
they're-
Matt is going to way underplay how important he is here. Like,
No,
this is
not important,
a
but-
very fast group of people.
Yeah, so they are good. They're some of the best triathletes in the world. Like one of the guys that was kind of at the race was, he's won Ironman Canada, and then let's see, I would say that Eric Langstrom is probably the, I guess, initiator, or I don't know exactly what his role is, but he's the one that started Transition 4. And he's
an awesome presence in this region.
Yeah,
he really
he's
is.
basically just been winning the half Ironman
He won
races.
Santa Cruz, when I was there, yeah.
And then there's one in Michigan that he won, Steelhead.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's a winning machine. All he does is win. But anyway, so he basically asked me to be one of the cinematographer people for this project, and that video should come out at the end of this week. Cool. But if you guys want to go look for trailers right now, you can search for the Overland Triathlon. You can search for it on YouTube, or you can check out my YouTube. I'll link to it. And definitely there should be a big kind of promotional whirlwind kind of launching that little video
I am
project.
very excited for this.
It's gonna be like a 20-minute video just talking about it, and it's basically like a non-traditional triathlon where you get to do some off-road stuff, and it's not in a specific order, and I think you'll like it. It's pretty cool. Yep.
Cool.
Very cool. I will kick off my one last thing with our weekly Dialed Cycling team ride on Zwift. And if you guys want to join us, look us up on Strava. Check out the Dialed Cycling group page there, and we will post up all the details and put out the information. But 6:30 on Tuesday nights, we ride for this time of year. We're getting up to about 30 miles, and then, like I said, as the course of the year rolls on, we'll get up closer to 50 miles, which ain't too shabby for a Tuesday night to get a ride in.
Not at all.
Yeah. So, on the final note here, I just wanted to thank Chuck again for coming in. It was a pleasure to have you in here and getting your insight and getting to know you a little bit better. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
Yeah, it was a great time.
And if you guys want to learn more about Oregon Bicycle Racing Association, aka OBRA, you can check them out on Facebook, and you're going to look up. You can look up Oregon Bicycle Racing, or their tag is at OR Bicycle Racing. You can check them out on Instagram at Oregon Bike Racing, and you can check them out on their website at obra.org. Any one of those will be full of all kinds of cool pictures and information and racing and all kinds of fun stuff with respect to bikes. So anything else you want to add on OBRA there, Chuck?
Nope.
No?
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to reach Chuck too, he is on the obra.org website.
Hey, my BAM underwear made the front page of the OBRA site last week. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
That needs to get tagged and put on our Facebook.
They've already moved on, but I had a day, about 4 or 5 days, where the BAM underwear was prominent.
Is that going to make an appearance again, like sometime this?
Yeah,
this
I'll wear it
spring?
to the podcast next week.
There you
for
go. I'll wear my Speedo. We'll do it.
I'm sure you got a screenshot of that, so you have to send that over so we can post that up on our social media, of which you can check out at Dial Podcast on Instagram, as well as at Facebook. And then you guys can always email us at Dial Podcast, any of our first names at dialpodcast.com. All right, you guys, thank you very much for coming back around for another awesome show. It's a pleasure always to have this in our week, so thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
All right. You guys have a great one. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.